Behind me is the house where one of the most famous or infamous characters of last century was born. It was the home of the leader of the USSR for the best part of 3 decades, Joseph Stalin. They have preserved his home and made it into a museum complex. The museum is made up of his home, of this huge building here, and of his own personal train wagon, which he used when attending meetings with the presidents of America and Britain during the war. We're going to go inside the museum. Firstly, I'm curious to know whether it's just matter of fact, which is fine, or whether they're going to be glorifying him. And secondly, it is a cool piece of architecture from the time. Although for many people, Stalin was a ruthless dictator with the blood of millions of people on his hands, for others, including many people here in his hometown of Gori, he's still revered. Behind me is something very, very rare. It's a statue of Stalin. Once upon a time there used to be thousands of them all over the USSR. Now this is pretty much the only place you can find them. In my years of travelling all around the USSR, I have seen some busts of Stalin in public places, and I have seen 1 or 2 statues in private places, but this is the first time I've ever seen a statue of him on public display. Apart from here, all of the statues came down during the de-Stalinisation process carried out by his successors after his death. Well, it's cool when your wife looks like she's a child, because the lady just automatically gave me 1 adult ticket, 1 child ticket, so saved quite a bit of money there, bonus. Straight away in the very first room they mention about the political repressions. Museums are pretty much the only place you can find anything to do with Stalin these days. As you'd expect, here's a good place to find propaganda art, which at the time were probably all around the country. It seems if you wanted to impress Stalin, it was a good idea to grow your own moustache. It's certainly interesting coming to such places. This probably hasn't changed since it first opened in the 1950s. The city of Volgograd, which used to be called Stalingrad, is quite famous, but it seems there's lots of other towns and cities named after him as well. Stalinogorsk, Stalino, etc. Here's a maquette of Lenin's mausoleum, which still stands in Moscow on Red Square. And once upon a time, Stalin used to lie there as well, until he got removed after de-Stalinisation. This is an interesting embroidery showing the leaders of the 2 communist superpowers at the time, the USSR and China, before they fell out after Stalin's death. Gifts here from places like Finland, France, Netherlands, Italy. Indeed, initially, a lot of people all around the world, even from industrialized Western countries, were very enthusiastic about communism. However, most of these people lost their interest once they got to know about the repressions that took place during Stalin's reign. Although he'd done a lot of good for the country, he'd done untold damage to the international communist movement, which never quite recovered. The topic of Stalin is a long and complicated one, and not really one I can cover in a 5-minute video. As you can see here, it is actually a state-run museum. So I guess it's a bit of an awkward situation for the authorities who are trying to push Georgia close to the EU and the EU's principles to be financing the museum of a notorious dictator. So, just having a coffee after visiting the Stalin Museum, and actually it was quite matter of fact and it was interesting. I think it's definitely worth a visit if ever you happen to be in Little Gori, which is only about 1 hour away from Tbilisi. Not surprisingly, Stalin's name is still everywhere in this town. I'm currently having a little stroll in Stalin Park. There's Stalin Avenue, and this is Stalin Square. In fact, it was on this square behind me that a curious incident took place. One night about a decade ago, the huge main statue of Stalin that was there got secretly taken down, and a lot of the locals weren't very happy about it and have petitioned for it to be returned. But as of yet, the authorities haven't reinstated it. For those of you not interested in 20th century world history, Gori has its own fortress as well.